Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this Tales from the Crypt season review video as part of my 2 month Tales from the Crypt series review, where I'm taking a look at all 7 seasons from the Tales from the Crypt TV series from the 90s. Season 1 I have up on my channel, so if you want to check that out, there's only 6 episodes, so I went through each of them. Season 2 is quite a bit different. There's 3 times as many episodes, so we have 18 for season 2. So I'm just going to do a top 5. My top 5 are favorite episodes from season 5, or from season 2, including an honorable mention. And then my bottom 3 are least favorite episodes from season 2 of Tales from the Crypt. So I'll say that season 2 is really solid. I mean, there's really only 3 episodes out of 18 that I gave a less than 3 to out of 5. Otherwise, 15 of the 18, I gave a 3 out of 5 at least. A lot of 3 out of 5s, a lot of 3.5 out of 5s, and then my top 5, including an honorable mention, so 6, got a 4 out of 5. So the bottom 3, quite honestly, were pretty easy for me to put down and to rank. The top 5 was much harder in terms of the ranking and the order. But all the other ones that I don't mention in this video are good solid episodes for what they are. So I just can't go through every single one when there's 18 of them. But yeah, I have season 2 here from my box set. This has got some special features on the back if you guys want to do a little pause there. It's got a behind the screens shockumentary feature. So it's kind of cool. It has interviews with like John Kassir, who's the voice of the Crypt Keeper, and some of the producers and directors and things. Kind of how they stayed true to form of the comic books of Tales from the Crypt, and then sort of how John Kassir, who's the best part of this series. Let's just be honest about it. How he got casted as the Crypt Keeper and all that, and sort of the puppetry behind it. And then there's another feature at Fright and Sound, bringing the Crypt experience to the radio, where there's different radio broadcasts of the episodes and the comic book stories. So those were pretty cool featurettes. But otherwise, 3 discs in here. There's 6 episodes on each of the discs, so 18 in total. So let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with my least favorite episodes of season 2 from Tales from the Crypt. And the first one I'm going to talk about was the third episode from the season that aired on April 21st, 1990, directed by Walter Hill, and that's entitled "Cutting Cards." This one stars Lance Hendrickson and Kevin Feige. Um, this is basically about 2 rival gamblers who try to outdo each other. They really hate each other with a passion, so they face off in an increasingly dangerous and gruesome games in order to see who will leave town first. That's kind of the bet they have, and I don't know. This episode just doesn't feel like a Tales from the Crypt episode. It's not bad, and I'm a big fan of Lance Hendrickson, but he's just not really given that much to do here, and it's just kind of a forgettable episode, if I'm being honest. Especially compared to all the other episodes in this season, or at least 15 other episodes of this season. So, yeah, I mean, I'd watch it again, but it definitely is one of them that sticks out the least to me for season 2. So that's why Cutting Cards is my third least favorite from season 2. My second least favorite is going to be Judy, You're Not Yourself Today. This aired on June 12th, 1990. It was directed by Randa Haynes. This is about an elderly witch posing as a cosmetic salesperson who visits the home of this young couple, this vain and eccentric couple played by Brian Kerwin and Carol Kane. Then the witch convinces Judy to try this magic necklace that basically swaps their bodies, and you're kind of through the whole episode, the husband's trying to figure out which one is his wife Judy, and which one's the elderly witch, because she keeps switching them back and forth, which was kind of interesting. But overall, I just wasn't really into this episode. I kind of had a hard time staying into it, to be honest with you. There's really not much. There's just not a lot of meat on the bone, if I'm being honest. At least not for me. So that's why it's my second least favorite of the season. But easily my least favorite of the season, my number 1 least favorite, if I can find the write up on it here. Oh, I gave I gave a 2.5 out of 5 on those other two that I mentioned. This is the only one I gave a 2 out of 5 to. And that's episode 8 of the season that aired on March 22nd, 1990, entitled For Crying Out Loud, directed by Jeffrey Prince. This is about a rock promoter who plans to run off with this donation money that he's raised by accumulated through a series of Save the Amazon Rainforest charity benefit concerts. But it becomes unexpectedly becomes complicated when it turns out that his hearing problems are nothing more than his conscience, voiced by Kinison. Lee Arenberg plays Marty Slash. I didn't care about either of these characters. I don't know who was more annoying, his conscience or Marty Slash himself. This episode was just so forgettable and kind of annoying to me. It's really the only episode that kind of pissed me off, to be honest with you. And it had a little blood in it and stuff, but I just didn't care about anything that was going on in this episode. Um, Katie Seagal's in it for a brief period, and that's fine, but yeah, I don't know. This episode just completely. It's a very weak Tales from the Crypt episode, if I'm being honest, and definitely my least favorite from season 2. So now on to bigger and better things. We're going to talk about my top 5 favorites. And first, I'm going to mention my honorable mention. So 6, I guess, if you want to say. There were 6 really solid, great episodes, in my opinion. I gave a 4 out of 5 to. And my honorable mention is going to be episode 10 that aired on June 5th, 1990, entitled The Ventriloquist Dummy. This was directed by Richard Donner. This has Bobcat Goldthwait and Don Rickles, the late Don Rickles, in it. And I tend to like these ventriloquists because to me there's something inherently creepy about ventriloquist dolls or dummies, if you will. That happened in the Twilight Zone. I think there were a couple in the Twilight Zone, actually. I think there was one in Tales from the Dark Side. That's it's kind of episodic gold, and from a sort of a horror standpoint, and this one's no exception. But I wasn't so much that I was scared by this episode, but the two performances I thought Bobcat Goldthwait and Don Rickles were really good in this episode, and it also has a great twist in it, and really good practical effects, including a sort of a gruesome. I don't know what you want to call it, a gruesome creature that's revealed towards the end of the episode. Um, but basically, it's about this aspiring ventriloquist, Billy Goldman, who's played by Bobcat Goldthwait, who wants to improve his craft. So he seeks out his idol, a retired ventriloquist, Dr. Ingalls, or Mr. Ingalls, played by Don Rickles. But he discovers that he has a dark past and a gruesome secret. And I really like the practical effects in this episode. I like the performances by those two. It was a really interesting story. It has a really good twist ending, like at the very, very end of the episode as well. So yeah, this has to be my honorable mention. I had a hard time keeping it out of my top 5, if I'm being honest. But like I said, these top 6 episodes were all time greats for me. Number 5, so my fifth favorite episode of the season was the 4th episode of season 2 that aired on April 24th, 1990, and was directed by Chris Wallace, and that's entitled Till Death. I gave a 4 out of 5 to. I also gave a 4 out of 5 to The Ventriloquist Dummy. All of these had a 4 out of 5. So this one is about a landowner, Logan Andrews, played by D.W. Moffat, who woos the haughty, snobby, and wealthy Margaret Richardson, played by Pamela Geen, to help finance a development project. Basically, he gets a hold of this potion from an ex voodoo priestess, played by Janet Hubert, that contains a deadly warning that he ignores, of course. Things go awry for him when he does not heed the warning, resulting in an undead Margaret armlessly chasing him without end. And this was a very claustrophobic episode. It was a very effective episode for the viewer, really putting themselves in Logan Andrews' shoes here. Um, yeah, it's just I don't want to give too much away, but he tries to do away with her, and of course she comes back from the grave, and there's really no end, as it says in this episode synopsis for him. I mean, in life or in death, he's constantly going to be he just wanted this woman basically to take a liking to him. And of course, because he doesn't heed the warning, it goes way beyond that, where she becomes freakishly obsessed with him in life, and then freakishly obsessed with him in death. And he kind of gets his comeuppance, if you will, because he's kind of a jerk in this episode that's really out for himself. And um, it has a great ending to it. It really does. So this was just a great episode till death. My fifth favorite of the season. My fourth favorite of the season is going to be the very first episode of season two, and that's entitled "Dead Right," directed by Howard Deutsch. That aired on April 21st, 1990. This starred Demi Moore and Jeffrey Tambor. This is one of the episodes that I remember seeing when it not when it first aired because I didn't have HBO, but seeing it in the 90s when I was a lot younger, catching it on late night TV show, and it scared the hell out of me. I mean, it doesn't scare me now, but Jeffrey Tambor, the makeup effects and the practical effects that they put on him to make him this overweight, grotesque character was just phenomenal. It was really scary at the time. But basically, this takes place in 1950. You have this gold digging secretary, Kathy Finch, played by Demi Moore, who ends up marrying Charlie Marno, played by Jeffrey Tambor, an overweight, unhygienic, and grotesque slob of a man. And she does this because she's told by a fortune teller, Madame Vorna, played by Natalia Nagolich, that he will die shortly after inheriting a large sum of money. And it's just a fantastic twist between Jeffrey Tambor's makeup and look and the twist in this episode. That automatically puts it in the top five for me, and the fact that it has a little nostalgia because I remember it. But it's really those first 2 points. I love the twist in this episode. One of the great twists of all time, not just in this series, but in all horror series and movies, in my opinion, because basically Vorna's prediction comes true, but not in the way that Kathy expects. And quite frankly, as a viewer, not really in the way you expect, even though it totally makes sense. And that's what makes it such an effective twist. So Dead Right, definitely my fourth favorite episode from season two. My third favorite episode from season two is actually going to be the very last episode of the season, which was just a very fun and well shot episode entitled The Secret. It was the 18th episode of season two that aired on July 31st, 1990, directed by J. Michael Riva. This is one about a 12-year-old orphan, Theodore, who's finally able to leave the orphanage where he lives and is adopted by a rich, childless couple known as the Colberts. But unknown to Theodore, his new parents harbor a dark secret. However, unknown to the Colberts, Theodore has a dark secret of his own. So think classic horror movies with this one, but it's just a very well told story that unfolds, and it has some. You're just expecting something to happen with that premise, and it does. The last 10 minutes are really fun. I love the look of this episode. The atmosphere in this episode is fantastic, and then we get the first twist reveal, and then we get the final twist reveal, which is really fun. We always had an inkling that there was something special about him. When he was in the orphanage at the beginning of this episode, it's kind of whispered about, but it comes to fruition at the end of the episode in classic Tales from the Crypt TV horror series fashion. So, yeah, I really enjoyed The Secret. Gave it a 4. Well, like I said, they all got a 4 out of 5. I got to quit bringing that up. But The Secret was definitely my third favorite episode of season two, the final episode of season two. My second favorite episode of season two is the 15th episode that aired on July 10th, 1990, and was directed by Jim Simpson. And this is entitled Mute Witness to Murder. And the best thing about this episode are the two lead performers. You have Patricia Clarkson and Richard Thomas, two just great actor and actresses. Basically, this is about after witnessing a brutal murder in an apartment across from her own, Susie, played by Patricia Clarkson, is rendered mute and is placed in the care of Dr. Trask, who unfortunately happens to be the person that she witnessed committing the murder. Once he discovers that she's the one that recognizes him, he knows that and knows what he's done. He attempts to use his power to have Susie silenced forever. And again, the performances by these two are awesome. It has great atmosphere. It's very creepy. It's just a great Tales from the Crypt episode, and I keep coming back to it. But Richard Thomas is extremely creepy in this episode, and very effectively so. And Patricia Clarkson plays a great victim in this episode, but there's a twist at the end. And I'm not gonna, I don't want to give too much away, but let's just say in typical fashion, comeuppance are given, and it just has a great twist. Again, I want to say more, but I'm not going to. So you're going to have to watch it. But that's my second favorite episode. Mute Witness to Murder, second favorite episode of season 2. But my favorite episode, and it's one that's talked about with the Tales from the Crypt series in general, is one of the most brought up episodes. Why can I not find it? Oh, sorry guys, I'm still trying to get rid of shit. So if you hear me sniffing out, that's why. But my favorite episode of season 2 is Lower Berth, which aired on July 3rd, 1990. Was written by Fred Decker, directed by Kevin Yeager, so some great names in horror there. This was the 14th episode of season 2. This is the one about Anak, who's a two-faced freak living at a traveling sideshow in the early 1900s, where he's abused by his caretaker, Mr. Sickles. One day, Anak falls in love with the sideshow's newest attraction, Myrna, a 4,000-year-old mummy which is said to be cursed. It doesn't really say too much in that synopsis there, but that's part of why I like the episode. There's something really cool and creepy about those early 1900s sort of circuses or freak show, sideshow, traveling sideshows that it was famous for at the time. But yeah, just the look of Anak, this two-faced freak, as well as the look of Myrna, this 4,000-year-old mummy. They're both fantastic. Great makeup effects, great practical effects, a great story. And the best part about this story, though, is the very ending and how it ties back into the Crypt Keeper, who, of course, introduces all these episodes. And we basically come to find out where the Crypt Keeper came from. So once that happened, I was like, best of the season. No question about it. I just loved it. Because something like the final shot that you get in the episode, I don't want to give too much away, but it focuses on another surprising character, in its early stages, let's say, and that's as much as I can say. I'm going to give it away otherwise. It's Lower Berth is the best episode, in my opinion, of season 2 of Tales from the Crypt. So yeah, it was a very good season. There were a lot of other episodes I wanted to put in my top 5, but then it would have been a top 10. Like The Thing from the Grave with a hot looking Terry Hatcher comes to mind. Four-sided Triangle with a young Patricia Arquette and a hot Patricia Arquette comes to mind. The Switch with William Hickey comes to mind. What was the other one I wanted to mention with Harry Anderson? Corman's Calamity comes to mind. But again, if I include all of those, I have a top 10 out of 18 instead of a top 5. But so I'm just throwing those out there as being really solid episodes, but just didn't quite make my top 5. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys, for Tales from season 2 of Tales from the Crypt. I believe this is the longest season in terms of episodes. So, really good season. Really excited to have this, as well as I am the whole collection. God damn, I'm sorry, guys. Oh, there, my ear just popped. That's awesome. Now I can't hear. And I got boogers and snot running out of my nose. So I guess this episode just ran a little bit too long for my cold symptoms. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this season review. Please like this video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for this series for the rest of March and April, as we're doing all 7 seasons with taking time to do it. Please subscribe to my channel down below so you don't miss any of my great horror content. Not only the rest of this series, but what I have coming out the rest of the year is all planned out for you guys. Very excited about it. So hope you enjoyed this review. Hope everybody's doing well. Stay scared. Bye.